QRange. This is a loaded component, so let's dive right into it. Q-range, we're going to need to model some data, v-model. Let's model a range there. And then I'll come in here and say const range is equal to a reference to, well, nothing by default. And then we can import ref out of view, save it, and we are all set and ready to go. There we go. You probably want to see what this looks like. So what I might do is wrap this inside of a Q card, Control-Shift-P, wrap, Q-card. And what we can actually do is add an arrow here, arrow right, and then say Q-card-section. And then that's going to wrap in a Q card, which wraps in a Q card section, which then has our range, which we had selected. So let's go ahead and save that. Looks a little bit silly because this needs to be full width. Class is equal to full width. And there we go. We've got a range ready to go. Super simple by default. Next, I want to spit out our data. So let's come down here and add another Q card section. And inside of there, I'll say Q-chip. And then I'll whack in our range data. Range. Just so we can see what's happening here. Cool. All right, let's explore this component. We can set a min and a max. So if I come in here and say min is equal to 0 and then max is equal to 10, that's going to be the minimum 0 and the maximum 10. So that's kind of cool. Another thing we can do is say reverse, which means the bottom is going to be the minimum number and then the top is going to be the maximum number. I don't know why you would want to do that, but I'm sure there are legitimate reasons. So let's get rid of that and see what else we can do. We can also say inner-min and say something like 30 and then inner-max. Check this out. This basically allows us to have a inner track inside of this component. Make sure that they both have colons at the start. And there we go. Now we can't actually go below that inner minimum and we can't go above that inner maximum. And we get a little bit of extra styling on the track there to show us what that minimum and maximum is. So that's kind of cool. What else can we do? Well, we can say step here. So let's say step is equal to 2. And that means we're only going to be able to increment by 2 at a time. So if you look at the min down here, notice that as I go across, we're jumping by 2s. So that's good to know. What else can we do? We can also add snapping here. So now we get that incrementing by 2, but it also snaps to the next number, which is usually a nicer experience for the user. Let's go ahead and remove these. And let's change the step to 5 so that it's a little bit more obvious. And there we go. You can see it sort of snapping to 5 along the way there. And another thing that this works really well with is markers. So we can say markers now, which are going to show markers for each step, and it's going to snap to each of those markers. This makes it a little bit easier for the user to see what's going on. So I really like that. Another thing we can do is make it vertical. Vertical. And now we've got a vertical track, which is kind of cool. We can also change the track dash size. So let's set the size to something like 10 pixels. And that means the track itself is going to be a lot larger. So check this out. Now we've got a larger track. And we might also want to make the thumb size a little bit bigger now. So let's say thumb dash size is equal to something like 35 pixels. And now we've got larger thumbs. Another thing we can do is make it read only. So read only means that we can read it, but we can't actually change any of these values. And that might make more sense if we have a default here. So let's do this. Let's say a default of minimum 10 and then maximum 80. Save it. And there we go. This is read only, so I can't actually change any of those values. And then, of course, anything that has read only usually also has disable. And I've talked about this in the past where disable is kind of like saying you can't change this value or you don't have permission to change this value, whereas read only is basically saying we're only displaying data to you right now. Now, another cool thing is that you can have a drag range. Check this out. This is really cool. Drag-range means that you can still change the left and the right values here, so the min-max, but you can also click on the center and drag the entire thing. When I first discovered this, I'm like, whoa, that is really cool. In fact, we have in our app a periods section, which is basically a period of time. So for example, between 2017 and 2019. And then what we do is we make it so that you can say, for example, 2017 to 2019, and now allow me to sort of span across those periods like so. Yeah, so I think that's really cool. Another thing we can do is say drag range only. So that's kind of cool. It means that you can do dragging for the range, and if you try and select one of these values here, it's still just going to drag the range. Oh, that doesn't work because it's actually drag only range. So let's try that again. Yeah, there we go. Notice that I can't actually change the range individually. It's just going to drag the entire thing. So that gives us some really interesting precise functionality that we can get out of this component. Another thing we can do is play around with the colors. So let's say color is equal to purple-7, and it's pretty insane how much color flexibility we get here. So that's kind of like the standard color that we have, the normal color prop. But then we can say left thumb color and set that equal to something like purple-9. And so this is going to make the left thumb a little bit darker. I don't know if you can tell the difference there. Maybe I'll change this to like a 11. There we go. Or how about this? Let's change this to a normal purple, and then we'll make this purple 9, just to differentiate those a little bit more. And then, of course, we can do the same for the right thumb color, so that the ends are a little bit darker. Another thing we could do is say left label color, if we're using labels, and set that equal to something like gray-9. Oh, I haven't even showed you labels yet. We can come in here and say label, and that means that as we drag, we get labels showing up. And something I'll often do is say label-always, so that the user can always see the resulting value there. So this is what happened when I added gray-9. It made sure that this label was gray, and then of course I can do the same thing to the right label. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Another thing we can do is change the inner track color and the track color. So if I come in here and say track-color, I can now set that equal to purple-2. So now we get this kind of purplish track color. And if we have an inner track, we can also change the color of that. So we can say inner-track-min. Actually, it's not inner track, it's just inner min. And let's set that equal to something like 30. And then we'll say inner max is equal to 90 and save it. And then we can come down here and say inner track color, and let's set that equal to like a really dark purple. How about purple-9? And there we go. Now we've got that inner track color different as well. Man, this is really, really cool. I can't believe the flexibility we get by default. It's so simple to do using Quasar's track component. Okay, let's remove a lot of this though to bring us back to a simpler example. I'll keep the labels in because I really like them. Now, one thing you might use the track for is setting an opacity. I'll give you an example. Let's set the step equal to 0.1 so that it's a very small step. And then I'm going to set the min equal to 0, so an opacity of 0. And then in CSS, usually the opacity isn't 0 to 100. So it's not a percentage, it's 0 to 1. So then I can set the max here equal to 1. And instead of 0.1, let's actually set that to 0.01. And there we go. Now we can change the opacity like this. So it doesn't make sense with a range. This would probably make more sense with a slider. But I want to show you this anyway, just to sort of give you an idea of some of the extra flexibility that we have. We can also get specific about the label values. So I can come down here and say left-label-value. So for this left label here, I want you to show range.min. So get the current range minimum value, and I want you to add on to that px for pixels. And we might add a space in there as well. Of course, we can now do the same for the right one. Right label value. And then this is showing us that we're going from a minimum of that many pixels. And that one's not working because we have to set this to max. And there we go. Now we can see the min and max, and the label's got a little bit more context for the user. And by the way, I want to take the opportunity here to show you something really cool about Quasar's labels. Notice that this little arrow pointing to the dot, notice that it's on the right side of the label. Now, if I drag this across, it gradually makes its way over to the left side of the label. How cool is that? So it's gradually adjusting itself so that when it reaches the right side, it can still be displayed and it doesn't fall off the edge of the screen. But then when we go to the left side, it still doesn't fall off the screen on the left side. So just these little things that Quasar takes care of for us is really, really awesome. Another thing we can do is add markers. Check this out. If I say markers here, marker dash labels, we get labels for all of those individual markers. How unbelievably cool is that? And another thing we can do is actually tap into this and turn it into a function. I'll show you what I mean. So we can take that value, and then if we just return the value, we end up with the same thing. But we can also then say value plus, and then maybe a percentage sign, for example, and then we get percentage signs on the end. So that is really, really cool. We can actually tap into those markers. But it gets even better. We have slots for these markers as well. So let me get rid of that. Or we might just change it to only marker labels. There we go. So we're back to that other example. And how about we change the step to 10, just so we have a little bit more room to play with. All right, that looks good. Now I can come in here and then jump into that slot by saying template, hashtag, marker, label, group. And we'll set that equal to scope. So we'll pull the scope out of there. Now let's just add a pre-tag in here and have a look at what that scope looks like. There we go. Notice that we've got the marker list available to us. And if we scroll down a bit here, we've also got the marker map, which gives us the current marker. And then we can easily pull out anything about that marker. Okay, so that's good to know. Now we can start playing around with this and basically rewriting those markers. So one of the first things I like to do with slots is basically proxy through the original functionality. So then once the original functionality is working, I can kind of build from there. So this is what I mean by that. Let's throw in a div. And then for that div, we're going to say v-for marker in scope.marker list. So we're going to iterate over all of the markers that are available to us. Then I want to come in here and say the key is equal to marker.index. And then inside of there, how about we spit out the current marker that we're on by saying marker.style. Sorry, not .style, .value. Okay, so we're getting there, but Quasar was doing a lot of styling work for us to make sure that these markers showed correctly. So in order to fix that and basically bring back in the styling that Quasar gave us, we can say that the class is equal to scope.marker. Oh, we don't need to say scope because we've already got the current marker. So marker.classes. All right, so that's done something, but it still doesn't look right. And that's because Quasar also uses the style tag with the marker. So let's say marker.style. And there we go. So basically, we've proxied Quasar's original functionality into the markers again. Now, obviously on its own, this is completely useless, but now we can do cool stuff like this. Control-Shift-P, wrap that inside of a Q-chip. And there we go. Now the markers are chips. We have total control over the display of these markers. And let me show you a really cool example that the docs uses. Basically, we can turn this into an array now, and we can start adding our own classes in. And what the docs do is they show you how you can make this 0 a light orange color, and then gradually make it a darker orange color. So check this out. I'll put that on a new line, so it's easy to see. And then we can come in here and then say text-deep-orange. So we're going to make this a deep orange color. Let's see what that looks like. So it's made the more deep orange. And then if I were to say 2 here, we'd get orange 2. And then we can go all the way through to orange 9 to get a really dark orange color. So now, since we're in a template string, I can say $, and then come in here with our curly braces and then say 2+. And the reason I say 2+ is because I want the value to be at least 2, because if it's too bright, then you can't really see it against the white background. That's why we've said 2+ there. Then math.ceil, so math.sealing this number, marker.value. And the reason we say math.ceil here is to make sure we don't end up with any decimal places. And then I can say the marker's current value and then divide it by something like 5. So if I go 5 there, notice that once we get to 40, it doesn't really work anymore. So I can make this number bigger, and let's go all the way up to 13. And the reason I knew that was 13 is because I figured it out earlier. So now it's 0, which is going to be the lightest possible color, which in this case is going to be a 2. And then it gradually gets darker all the way through to 100. How unbelievably cool is that, that we get this awesome flexibility using Quasar's range component? Okay, let's go back to a simpler example. There's 2 more things that I want to show you. Save it, and let's actually make this a lot simpler. And we don't need step either. There we go. I want to show you that we can have a track image. So this track here, we can actually change that to an image. So I'm going to copy paste something directly from the Quasar docs. This is basically just a base64 encoded image. And you can find this on the Quasar docs if you're interested. Otherwise, you can just watch to follow along. And now on the component, I can say : track dash image. And we'll set that equal to that image. And now we have a track image as the background. How cool is that? Talk about flexibility. So you can change this background to any image that you like to get the effect that you desire for your tracks.